Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Alex Beyond Thoughts podcast with me, your host, Alex. It is so good to be back yapping in your ears. I cannot tell you how much I've missed the podcast. I released an episode pre-Christmas. Even in all of that time, I was like, oh, when do I come back? Do I do another episode soon? Do I wait until I have a new series ready? There was a lot of deliberation, we shall say, going on in the background. And I've honestly just got to a point where I was like, you know what? I miss talking to my people. I miss my little sessions with me, my camera, and my microphone, and all of my lovely listeners. Just getting into it, getting deep with it, getting a little yap session on. So I thought, what better way to bring back the podcast than with an episode about emotional intelligence? I have a very deep love for emotional intelligence, and it's just one of those things that I could talk about this for so long. I could have inspired, heartfelt conversations with so many people about building your emotional intelligence. And I just thought, why not bring that to the podcast space in a very intentional way, in a way that's like screaming, this is emotional intelligence, and we are talking about it. So, in today's episode, we will be hitting quite a few points on the things you needed to know about emotional intelligence 5 years ago. All the things that you should have been equipped with, that you needed to be taught and you weren't. So I'm going to teach you now. We're going to talk about it now. And if you know some of these things or you know all of these things, and this is just a reminder episode for you, I simply love that for you because it's just needed. There's no other way to describe this than it is needed. So let's go straight in. The first thing I wanted to talk about with emotional intelligence is on a basis. It is how in touch, how self-aware, how like connected you are to your emotions and the way in which they perform in your life. So at least this is what I believe emotional intelligence to be. This is how I teach it. This is how I integrate my emotional intelligence into my life. So that's the first thing. The second thing is how important it is to improve your emotional intelligence time and time and time again. There are certain things you will think you know. There'll be certain situations you think you'll react in a specific way, or this is how I'm going to show up if this ever happens in my life. And until you get to that point, until you reach that kind of precipice where you have to show up in the way that you want to, or you're going to show up in the way that you wouldn't necessarily choose every time, but it's happening anyway, this is the point in which your emotional intelligence gets built or broken. And by broken, I mean like you acknowledge that you maybe should choose different choices, you should try and feel different things. Alas, it doesn't work out that way. That's what I mean when I say broken. But you get to that point and it's like either I'm going to use the tools and skills I know to protect myself in this situation, to show up as I want to be the person I want to be in this situation. Or I'm just going to be like, you know what? Jesus, take the wheel. Jesus, take the wheel. We are flying off the handle. We are getting a bit reckless. We are chucking our emotional tool bag out the window and we are skirting off into the sunset with no skills, no tools, no action points, just vibes, just feeling, just mood, just emotion. So, throughout your life, you will have moments of tests, moments of challenges, moments of triumphs. And the way you view all of these things, the way you act as a result of these things, is defined by your emotional intelligence. So, right now, instantly, you can probably think of someone in your life that has maybe close to 10% emotional intelligence, and they are super reactive. They don't consider how their words emotionally affect other people. They don't consider how their words affect themselves. They are so reactive to the point where, like, it doesn't even make sense how they're reacting. There will be people in your life that just have such little emotional intelligence, self-awareness, kind of regard for the way their mood and their behaviors kind of all impact themselves and other people. Those people come to your mind instantly. And that is probably the best example I can give of someone who lacks the necessary skills and tools available that come with building emotional intelligence. So, if you are someone that has someone like that in their life, you know firsthand how taxing, how draining, and how stressful it is to encounter that person regularly. Doesn't mean you don't love them any less. Doesn't mean that you can't ever spend time with them. Doesn't mean that it is their fault that they lack this kind of basic skill. It's probably just never been taught to them. And if you were someone listening to this thinking, I think I'm that person with 0 to 10% of emotional intelligence, okay, perfect. Like, let's work on that from now because you get to be less reactive. You get to have more connection and trust and involvement with your emotional state and the way you show up and how reactive you are. You get to change that circumstance. So I say all that to say, these next few things that we're going to be talking about are kind of permission pieces, reminders, highlights on things you needed to know about emotional intelligence. So the first one I really want to talk about is that the premise of it's not always your job to have a response. It's not always your job to show up in a certain way because someone expects it. It's not always your job to respond with kindness or gratitude or generosity when someone tests your limits. It's not always your job to write 5 paragraphs to the dusty, crusty man that has been ruining your life for 6 months. It's not your job to have a response. And we feel like the response gives us closure, it gives us control, it gives us something to hold on to say, nope, I was right, or oh, you were wrong, or you see how you did this? This is how I felt about it. But something I've had to learn is that it's not always my job to have a response. If someone's ticked me off, I don't actually need to send them 3 paragraphs of why it's hurt me. I can just sit back and go, you know what, that hurt me. I'm going to process this within myself. If it comes to it and I need to set this boundary again, indeed I will. But for now, it's not my job to have a response. It's not my job right now to be reactive. It's not my job to have an entire curated, this is how you did this is how it hurt me, this is how I think I'm going to upset you by telling you this is how I think we should deal with it when I know I've upset you because I've brought my problem to you. Like, it's not your job to have a response. We forget that closure is something our ego likes because it gives us that reason to go back again for another hit, another conversation, another thing to harp on about when that is not necessarily the most productive thing for us. We might feel vindicated if we get to show up to that conversation and say, you know what? You hurt me. You did this to me. You upset me. You made me angry. You loved bombed me, or whatever it is. We feel vindicated and satisfied that we got to deliver those emotions and those feelings and that reactivity on that person's door. But it's not always the best thing for you. And building your emotional intelligence tells you in those situations, am I getting anything productive out of this? Is it serving me to continue having this conversation? Is it serving me to entertain a response here? Is it serving me to spend this time thinking and processing and dealing with this thing when I could spend other time actually just protecting my peace, protecting my safety, doing something self-care wise for myself that's going to make me actually feel better? It's not always your job to have a response. Kind of addition to that is this statement of it's not always your job to have a solution. You've had a fight with your partner. There's an issue in XYZ. Things are falling apart at the workplace. That friendship has been kind of leaning to the wayside. It's not always your job to have a solution. And that's a really tough one to sit with because we are natural problem solvers. We naturally want to jump into a situation and go, okay, take this part out, take this part out, add this in, add this in. Okay, perfect. Here's your solution. Whether it's a friend coming to you, they're thinking about, oh, I don't know if I like this guy anymore. I don't know if I want to talk to him. Or if it's someone coming to you with an issue in the gym, or someone coming to you with, here's this thing in the workplace. We need a solution by this day. I don't know where to go next. It's not always your job to provide a solution, to take it on as your own baggage, your thing to deal with, your problem, and do the mental gymnastics to try and provide a useful solution. It's not always your job to do that. And I feel like a lot of women need that permission piece to say, no, I don't have to deal with this. I don't have to think about this. I don't have to provide the boundaries for this. I don't need a solution here. You need to go and figure that out. I'm giving you back the baton and you can go work this one out yourself. Because within this, every time we try to take control of a situation, provide the solution, bring in all the necessary things and take out all the unnecessary things in a problem, we are taking away the ability for the other parties in the situation to go through this experience and learn the essential skills to solve the problem themselves. So whether it's your brother's come to you and he wants to break up with his girlfriend and he needs to draft the breakup text. I need you to come meet me because we're going to break up or whatever. Um, it's not your job to sit there and provide a solution for him or talk him out of it or talk him into it. It's not your job. If your brother needs to write the breakup text, he has to go through the emotional process of that. If you rob him of that and you write the perfectly drafted response because you've been through this before and you know better, how is he going to learn the skills to do it next time? I'm not saying this is a good example. Please don't break up with people over text. It's really mean. But you get what I'm saying. You're taking away that person's responsibility, skill building, and necessary emotional turmoil. Like sometimes you actually just need to go through it. People can be talking. Here's what you should do. Here's how you should do it. People need to feel. There's only so much you can talk to someone. They need to make that mistake and they need to feel the consequences of it. And by you providing a solution, by you coming in and saying, I can solve this problem, I've done it before, I know better, I can do better, you're taking away their ability to have that knowledge themselves. And you're also putting all of that mental strain, the gymnastics, the burden of providing a useful solution, you're putting that all on yourself. And as emotionally intelligent people, we are rejecting that now. We're not doing that. We are providing solutions as and when it's necessary, and it's actually going to impact our lives, and it's actually going to serve us to have a solution here, to do the mental gymnastics here. When that's possible, when that's necessary, when that's needed, perfect. Any other time, it's actually just not your job to always have a solution. Something my 16-year-old self really needed to hear was that I am not a rescuer. I am just Alex. I cannot swoop in with my little cape, wrap everyone up, drop them off at the police officer's door and say, I've solved the case. I'm not a rescuer. I am just Alex. My responsibility is to ensure my own safety, my own health, my own wealth, and my own prosperity. I can't come and be firefighter, police officer, ambulance driver, bank lawyer, everything, rescuer for other people, especially at the detriment of myself. Does this mean you literally close the door, put a lock on it, and say, no one's coming in this space ever again? Certainly not. But that does mean that, like we said before, you don't have to have a solution to everything. You don't have to have a response for everything. You don't have to be the one that shows up and fixes the problem so everyone can turn around and go, oh my God, you saved me. You're not a rescuer. You're just you. Your main task, your main priority in this life, your birthright is to take care of yourself first. Everyone else's birthright is to take care of themselves first. When you come in and you're a rescuer, when you try and solve all the problems, when you try and take control of a situation, you are removing their right to rescue themselves, to save themselves, to provide and protect their own safety. Because guess what? Alex is going to swoop in and she's going to save the day. So I don't actually have to learn any essential skills. I don't have to regulate my own emotions. I don't have to solve my own problems. I don't have to stop showing up as angry, stop showing up as joyous, whatever, like whatever. I know that Alex is going to come in and save me from myself. So I don't have to take really responsibility for anything. I don't have to put myself out there, challenge myself, learn essential life skills because I know Alex is going to come save me. And How draining is that? When you're the person who's the rescuer, when you feel the responsibility to come swoop in with your little cape and wrap everybody up. How draining is that? So essentially draining. And it's just not something we are taking into the rest of 2025 because you are building your emotional intelligence. You get to have no response, you get to not have a solution, and you get to just be the rescuer for yourself. You get to solve only your problems. Another thing, 16-year-old me really, really needed to hear is that I need to feel my own emotions rather than do the performative version of feeling emotions. So, pretending to be the chill girl, pretending to be the cool girl, pretending to be the girl that's like, we call it pick me's in the UK at least. I'm pretty sure everyone else calls it pick me's, but just in case it's not, pick me. Um, the girl that's like, yeah, pick me, pick me. Like I'm such a cool girl. I'm such a girl that is like fine with the guys. I'm such a girl that is never going to cause you problems, never going to be a heartache like another girl. I'm always going to take care of you like none of these other girls. Like, do you know what I mean? I was a chill girl. I would never upset the vibe. I'd always get along with the boys. Like 16-year-old me was a pick me through and through and through and through and through. She didn't know any other way because she thought performative emotion was the only way she'd get love, reassurance, and safety. I would lock down, numb out on my emotions as a trauma response, as a way to provide safety for myself, and as a way to get that assurance and that love from other people that I wasn't a burden to them, that I wasn't any kind of emotional tax to them. I wasn't going to cause them any headaches because I was just a chill girl. I was just a cool girl. You could not like me because I'm just so chill and cool, you know? And I feel like you'll know exactly what I'm talking about when I say those words. But I was so performative that I'd even make up scenarios with how people would respond so that I could respond this way. So then they'll say that. So then I can start my tears or I can get angry and like cuss them out and then look cool to other people. Or if I know that I say this thing, they're going to react in this way. So then I can like storm off and like be really upset and really hurt. And they get to come apologize to me. And then I get to feel that love and validation that they still like me because like they've chased after me. How like sick and twisted is that? It's just something that I thought I had to do when I was 16 and had zero emotional intelligence and didn't really know any better. And some people take that same kind of mentality, those same kind of projections, that same kind of performativeness into their adulthood. And I know people that do it now. And I can see the need for them to actually feel their emotions, but they keep doing this performative thing to get the love, the attention, the care, the whatever that they really deeply crave. So if you are a person that this is kind of triggering, like, oh, maybe I did that recently, or oof, I used to be like that too. Here's your opportunity to build the skill to just feel your emotions and not be performative with it. I needed to feel my anger. I needed to feel my sadness. I needed to feel, I don't even know what's the word. Like I had a lot of secondary emotion from not feeling my anger and feeling my sadness. So like I needed to feel that depression. I needed to feel that sadness. I needed to feel that lowness. But because I wasn't dealing with the core two emotions of the anger and the sadness, it was offsetting all of these other things. And I'd just play performative. I'd never touched the things that were actually upsetting me, that actually made me angry, that actually made me sad. I would just do up performance with the rest of it. So we are building our emotional intelligence in 2025 by actually just feeling the things. If you've had a fight with your partner, actually just cry. Not do the whole, oh, you've upset me, you've hurt me so much, you have to come apologize because I'm so sad because you've made me sad. Like, drop that. Actually, just cry in your bed because your partner's upset you. And then if you feel the need to take them, the conversation that you upset me, this is how to not do it again. Perfect. But actually just cry instead of doing up, oh my God, you've hurt me so much. I gotta run to my bed now and storm up and huff so that you know that you've hurt me so you can come apologize and I can feel good about myself. Right? We're building emotional intelligence. We're saying no to those impulses to get those quick hits of validation and safety and love through this performative emotional state. One thing I think I need to take on now, so I'm sharing with you a current learning, is that you don't need to explain yourself. Whilst you're building your emotional intelligence, it can feel really needed to keep explaining yourself, keep explaining your thought processes, keep explaining your needs, but you don't actually need to explain yourself to other people. Sometimes saying, okay, I've heard you, I'm moving on, is the best thing you can do for yourself. Whether it's a breakup, whether it's a friendship breakdown, whether it's you've lost your job, whether it's you've had a rejection letter, sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself, the best thing you can do for your health, the best thing you can do for the future you is say, okay, I'm not going to sit here and argue. I'm not going to sit here and debate this. I'm not going to sit here and let you walk all over me argue with you, getting angry, getting upset, trying to justify reasons, trying to hang on, trying to get closure. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is just say, okay, when you want to say a whole podcast worth, you just say, okay, I'm moving on. And that's that chapter closed. You don't really need all of the answers. You don't need to give all of the responses. You get to just say, cool, let's cut it. This is no longer serving us. Closure would even be detrimental to this process. Let me pick up my bags and skedaddle. So that's just something that I'm still learning. I don't need to have the last say. I don't need to over explain myself so everyone can know every thought I've ever had. I just get to say, okay, cool. I see that you think that. I disagree. I agree. I'm indifferent to this response. I'm going to drop this here and move on. On this same topic, and I feel like we're kind of repeating the same things, but it's just so essential that we get the necessary vocabulary in there. Closure is a made up concept. Closure is something we need to keep to books, like wrapping up the plot, getting the closure for the characters. That is something we need to keep in books because it's just not real in real life. There will always be more questions. There will always be more what ifs. There will always be more, but what if this happened and I said this, or he said this, or she said this, or we did this? There will always be more questions. There will always be a need for answers. And there's pretty much never a time that you can flip the page and go, yep, I feel closure. I don't know anyone in the existence of everything that has ever had 100% closure on any situation ever. Let's be real, because we are so good at having questions and needing answers and wanting to see every thousand perspective of a scenario. What's the truth? What's false? Was my perspective right? Was their perspective right? We have just such an innate need for answers that we will never get them. There will never be closure except in books. Because if the book doesn't have closure, I've got a problem. I need to know the answer. Like, just think of even those like documentaries of missing persons cases. You're never fully satisfied because you don't have a full conclusion. You don't really know what happened in that murder. You don't really know what happened in that kidnapping. You don't really know what happened in that true crime story because it's never been solved. And how like deeply annoying is it that you don't know the answer and you can only speculate? Very annoying. However, it's real life. There's always more questions to be asked. There's always more answers that you would want and need. But do you ever always get them? Do you always ever get them, whatever the vocabulary is there? No, is the answer. Closure is made up. Keep it to the books and the movies. My final thing on emotional intelligence, because I just want to wrap it up real strong here, is that you owe it to yourself to uphold your standards even when you don't want to. You owe it to yourself. It is your right to uphold the standards you set for yourself, even when you yourself don't want to. You get to use your emotional intelligence to your benefit, sorry, regardless of what you desire in the moment. So when we're learning all of this, that moment will come where that breakup conversation happens and you have this burning need to have all of the answers to why a decision has been made in this way. You get to use your emotional intelligence in that scenario to uphold your standard of not needing to give a response, not needing to provide a solution, not needing to be the chill girl and be performative in your emotions. You get to uphold those standards for yourself. When someone's trying to convince you to have a drink and you said you don't want to, when someone's trying to get you to eat XYZ and you said, you know what, that thing doesn't agree with me, I'm not eating it anymore. You get to use this intelligence to uphold that standard, even if you desire to go binge drink on the weekend, but you've made it a non-negotiable that you're not doing that anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like, you need to use your emotional intelligence, your self-awareness, these skills you're building, your value system to align your life to uphold a specific way of living because it's your right to live that way, because it makes you feel best, because it is the best improvement you can give yourself right now to thrive in the future. And even if you desire the Mackies, skipping the gym that day, going back to that ex and having that conversation that will lead to the actions that you don't want to think about the following morning, you get to now uphold those standards regardless of what present you desires in the moment. So that's kind of just like wrapping all of this up to say, okay, we know the kind of things that we needed to hear 10 years ago, hear 5 years ago, hear right now. And now, following that, we get to uphold this standard. It's all good and well knowing the fancy words. It's all good and well knowing you're doing up performative, chill girl emotions. But in that moment where you recognize you're doing up performative, chill girl emotion, you need to now use that knowledge to hold the standard that you're going to actually feel your emotions, that you're going to drop the need for closure, that you're going to say no and move on when it counts. And that is where we're wrapping up this episode. I hope that this has triggered you a little bit to go, oh, here's a thought process, here's something that's a bit jarring and coming up, but also giving you some of the tools necessary to reframe this thinking and improve your life because you deserve it and it's your birthright to have this joyous human experience. And we just get to optimize it to the best of our abilities. So, yeah, I hope we are now a little bit more intelligent than we were previous to this conversation. If this was your reminder, your permission piece, your dressing down and telling off, I hope you got whatever you needed out of this and are leaving anything you don't need going forward. But that is it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode and for getting to this point. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Drop me a voice note in my Instagram DMs if you have more thoughts. If anything specifically clicked with you, I'd love to chat. But thanks so much for listening. I will see you guys in the next episode of the Alex Beyond Thoughts podcast. Bye, guys.